Could it be that you're making your inner struggles, your anxiety, your worry, your overwhelm, whatever it is, worse by using the wrong type of motivation? You might not have thought about that before, but there are actually two basic types of motivation. You can be motivated away from something that you don't like, or something unpleasant, or something dangerous. You might be motivated to run away from a wild animal, or you might be motivated to save your money so that you don't go bankrupt, or you might be motivated away from ill health, or you might be motivated away from unpleasant relationships. So with this sort of motivation, it's a very, very powerful form of motivation, and particularly so when you are close to the thing that you want to get away from. So in the case of your finances, if you're pretty poor and desperate, your motivation is going to be very, very strong. As you get a bit more secure in your finances, that motivation can drop off. Now, the benefit of away from motivation is it can be very, very powerful and help you get out of a dangerous situation very quickly. Think of how motivated you'd be to get away from a wild animal that was chasing you. The negative with this is that you need to carry around in your mind an image of the thing that you want to get away from. Otherwise, the motivation loses its power. Now, the polar opposite sort of motivation is toward motivation. This is where we're motivated towards something, perhaps towards being wealthy, or towards having great relationships, or towards better health. With this sort of motivation, it becomes more powerful as we get closer to the goal, closer to the thing that we're seeking. And the nice thing about this form of motivation is it requires us to maintain a positive image in our minds of the positive thing that we're working towards. Now, I can illustrate this quite nicely with some charts. Here is an example. Let's say this is about finances. This is our financial position in this vertical axis, and this is time in this horizontal axis. Let's say we're not very wealthy, we're quite poor, and we're really struggling. And so we're very, very motivated, and we might get an extra job or be very careful with our money, and slowly our position improves. And of course, as it improves, our motivation will tend to wane because it becomes less urgent. And what can happen is we can start to become more careless with our money as we lose motivation, and before we know it, we're back in the pothole that we're in once before, and have to motivate ourselves out of it again. And this is quite a common pattern for people in business, people in life, in their careers, and it doesn't just apply to money, of course, it applies to all sorts of things. The alternative, of course, is the towards motivation chart, which looks like this. To begin with, we have this vision of what we want, and perhaps our motivation isn't as strong as it will become as we work towards that goal. Let's say it's for wealth, as illustrated here. As we become more wealthy and we picture what that wealth will mean to us and what we can do with that money, our motivation can get stronger and stronger. So they're quite different charts and quite different patterns. These diagrams, incidentally, are taken out of my book, Overcoming Financial Stress, which you can get on my website or on Amazon. So the results we get in life are very much influenced by the things that we think about, the thoughts that we have, how we focus our attention and our thinking. So with away from motivation, we're focusing our thinking on negative things. We have these negative images. And also our unconscious mind doesn't process negatives very well. So if we are saying to ourselves, I don't want to be poor, our unconscious mind can overlook the don't part of it, and we'll start to see it. It'll just focus on the being poor, and it could work towards creating that situation rather than the reverse. So if we talk about inner struggles, we might have an away from motivation might be I don't want to be anxious. A towards version of that might be I choose to be relaxed and at peace. With respect to overwhelm, you might say I really don't want to be overwhelmed. I'm sick of being overwhelmed. Towards motivation approach to that is although there's a lot to do, I've set my priorities and will now tackle each item calmly one by one. With respect to weight, maybe the away from is, I'm so sick of being overweight. A towards version of that might be, I really care about my health, I love my body, and I choose to work towards feeling lighter. Now, most of us will use a combination of these types, but will tend to favour one over the other. A bit like some people tend to look on the glass being half full, whereas others look on it being half empty. But we do have a choice. We can choose the sort of motivation we focus on, and they do affect your thought patterns and affect how you feel. I've actually tested this, as you might know. I do quite a bit of distance running, and when I've perhaps overcooked it a bit, run a bit too far, and I'm struggling a bit to get home, if I start to think negatively, if I think, oh, will I make it? I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. I don't know that I can make it. It's too far to go. I'm feeling tired. I feel my energy drain. Whereas if I think to myself in a positive sense, all I've got to do is run to the next telegraph light pole, and that's all I've got to worry about. Just worry about the next step, or how great I'll feel when I get to the end of this and having met this challenge. I'll feel really, really good, and I've improved my running by running this much further. And when I think in that frame, my energy is actually lifted. I feel more powerful. So it certainly does make a difference, the way you think about these things. If you imagine perhaps being an Olympic athlete and training, you'd want to carry a positive image around with you to give you the energy and the resourcefulness and the persistence that would be required to do all the training to achieve that goal. And so you'd carry around with you the image of perhaps standing on the victory dais, or being presented with the gold medal, or perhaps the acclaim that you're going to achieve and receive from your friends, family, and possibly the nation. It can often be good to use away from motivation to get started. Often getting started with something can be the hardest part. And so if we use away from motivation, that can really force us to get moving very quickly and gather our resources and start to do something. But once we make some progress, it can be much healthier to turn towards a toward type of motivation. It might be useful to take note of the types of motivation your friends use. You might find that people who are constantly motivated away from take a bit of a toll on you, whereas people who are toward motivated will tend to lift you up. In a team situation, it can be helpful to have a towards motivated person dream of the goal and paint the big picture and describe where the team could get to, what they could achieve, and then have an away from motivated person look for the pitfalls, the obstacles, and the things that need to be overcome to achieve that dream. So in that situation, a combination can be very helpful. So as far as your inner struggles are concerned, I urge you to consider the type of motivation that you're using, and realize that this can affect how you feel, this can affect your energy levels, and it can certainly affect the direction you head and the success that you achieve. Of course, if you have persistent problems with your inner struggles, if you're unable to get rid of them no matter what, maybe we should have a chat. Sometimes they can be caused by more deeply seated issues, and these can often be solved very quickly on a one-on-one chat, but they can be much more difficult to resolve trying to work on them yourself, because they often involve unconscious processes that really aren't accessible to your conscious mind. So if you want to have a chat, you'll find my links in various places, or give me a direct message or whatever, and we'll see what we can do. Anyway, I hope you find this helpful. If you're interested in finding more of my helpful tips, please subscribe to my channels and my various social media pages. Thanks a lot.